Well, welcome to another edition of Believe in the Bronx, the midway through spring training edition. Pete Caldera here in Tampa, Mike Stanton back in the studio, and Mike, it's been a pretty good spring training so far. About 11:30 on Thursday morning, things started changing a bit in the other direction, but overall, this had been a pretty serene camp, a pretty healthy camp. Pretty exciting camp when you think of some of the rookies and the new addition in the bullpen and the rotation. But now the Yankees are dealing with some injuries. It starts with in the rotation with Carlos Rodon joining Frankie Montas, who had already been starting on the IL and who may not pitch at all this year for the Yankees, and a couple more pieces in the bullpen are hurt, and now also Harrison Bader, their starting center fielder. Yeah. Looks like he's not going to make it to the post on opening day.
Yeah, this time of spring training, games have been going on for a couple of weeks. These are kind of the dog days of spring. Everyone gets excited when you come into camp. Everyone gets excited, with the pitchers and catchers, everything's starting. Then everyone gets excited about the position players. And then as soon as things calm down there, what ends up happening? Well, then you start playing games. But, this, you got to remember, this one's a little bit different just because of the WBC. Haven't played that in quite a while. And so, but Cashman's nightmare, and it's every single solitary night, is when he gets up in the morning, what is the health report going to look like? He gets a report every single day. And, what is it going to look like? Like you said, they've done a pretty good job early in camp. Everybody is going through aches and pains. But we know that the Yankees over the years have had a tough time staying on the field. And it does look like some of that is starting to flare up now.
Yeah, and we'll deal with today's injury news first. With Harrison Bader, they're still waiting on the full medical report from Dr. Chris Ahmad, the team physician. With obliques, these are tricky. You don't want to force him back too soon, because that's when a 3-week injury turns into a 2-month injury. They've dealt with these things long enough to know you baby these things. And at least on March 10th, they're in a better position to do that now than if This was down the road in the season. So you'd anticipate he starts on the IL. Maybe in a best case scenario, you're looking at a mid to late April return. And then you got to think where they covered in the outfield. Now, we asked Brian Cashman today, do you think are you covered in the short term? He said basically we have to be. Cashman.
What are the
king of subtlety? Yeah. Or he's right. He always says that. Listen, if there's a better option out there externally, we're going to look into it. I mean, that doesn't seem like, at least at this point, that this is something you need to be going, taking a deeper dive into other organizations, because they do have guys that can cover it. Estevan Florial, their perennial prospect, lefty hitter, is out of minor league options, so you would think that he's now squarely back in the mix to at least make this roster and play some center field. Aaron Judge played a ton of center field last year, and he looked like a natural center fielder out there. Aaron Hicks, who you'd anticipate to be their opening day left fielder, is a natural center fielder, but they prefer him to be in the corner spot. So, but they are covered. They've got guys like Rafael Ortega, a major league center fielder, in camp right now as a non-roster player. And they got Willie Calhoun, not a center fielder or corner outfielder, but he's hitting like crazy in spring training. Take that for what it is, but he is a major league hitter and a lefty hitter and a guy who could impact their major league roster coming out of camp.
Yeah, so let's start off with the injury to Bader. And of all injuries that baseball players can have, obliques and intercostals are really the most difficult, because you can't do anything while you have this injury. If you have an arm injury, I can still run. If I have a leg injury, maybe I can still get my arm moving. But, when you have these core injuries, You do nothing at all, and you don't do anything until you feel no pain, and then you start easing your way back. So it's really about the severity of the injury on how long he's going to be out. They don't really know yet, okay? It doesn't seem to be all that severe because you can tell that, if nothing else, by the timeline that they're talking about. But they're still going to have to wait and see. Got to do this now. You can't just play through this. If you do it again, a 3-week injury turns into a 3-month injury if you redo it. It's always more severe. And people need to understand these things are extremely, extremely painful. A bad one every time you take a breath. And God forbid you sneeze. I know we're in the spring and allergies and all that kind of stuff. Right. I mean, we've actually seen guys go down with injuries when they weren't before, just on a sneeze. So, it's one of those things that they're going to have to really be cautious. They can't be proactive. They have to just be reactionary to whatever it is. But the good thing is that, we're at the beginning of March. We're in the second week of March right here. So you still have a few weeks of spring training. Let some of these young guys work things out. And, if the injury isn't as bad, that may determine on the route that you go. If it is an injury that Bader's going to be out for a longer period of time, there are no better options right now, but there will be at the end of camp. There will be players that will be released right towards the end of spring training, and there will be some options. They may not be great options. They might not be something you really want to do, but if Bader's going to be out and the young guys aren't working out the way you want them to, you will have some options at that time. So at least they have some time right now. Cashman doesn't have to make a knee-jerk reaction here, which Cash doesn't do very often anyways. But, he doesn't have to stress out completely. Just got to wait and see how long Harrison Bader is actually going to be out.
Yeah, I think they can cover it in the short term. I mean, you really wonder what the what the opening day outfield could be. I mean, you could very well have Giancarlo Stanton out there playing right field, and Aaron Judge possibly playing left field, and moving Aaron Hicks back over to his original position in center field. I mean, this is a experiment they've tried a bit in spring training, having Judge play a couple of games out there in left field, because at Yankee Stadium, they're thinking if ideally, and this is ideally, they'd like to get Giancarlo Stanton 50 starts out there in the outfield,
right?
A healthy Giancarlo Stanton, to sort of, they feel he also feels he's a better player when he is playing more regularly in the outfield, not just strictly a DH. But now this might have to be a necessity for the short term with the Bader injury, getting Stanton maybe 3 starts a week, if possible, out there in home games in right field at Yankee Stadium, less real estate, having Judge play in the vaster left field, and then you've got Hicks back in center field. So that could be an alignment you see as early as opening day.
And that's probably the one that makes the most sense. Now, you're still going to have to move players around, and because you're not going to have Giancarlo play right field every day. They'll have to spell him. You really, if you want him to play right field, depending on who your opponent is and where the road trip may take you, you probably want to try and do it at home, just because right field isn't nearly as big as some of the other ballparks around the league. So, you'll just kind of, it's going to be a fluid situation. And the reason that one makes the most sense is because that Aaron Hicks is a natural center fielder. I mean, that is his position. Now, you understand the struggles he had last year. He seems to be, early in the camp, he was talking about how he's in a better place mentally, how much stress there was last year. And it's all about getting off to a good start. So, but at least defensively, he's going to be able to do his job in center field. There's not going to be any question about that. And, as far as Judge playing center, yes, it is more physically strenuous to play center field. You've got more ground to cover. You got to cover both gaps. But it is also the easiest of the 3 outfields to play because you get such a clean read ball off the bat. Him playing left field, it's good to see him in left field here in spring training because the ball acts differently in left than it does in right. So he's got to get used to having that first step. He was a longtime right fielder. Center field for most guys is easier. But going to the other side, going to the other corner, it can be a little difficult on that original, that initial read on the ball right back over your head.
Yeah, yeah. You wonder how Bruno played. He's Aaron Boone has already said he feels comfortable if he needed to play Judge in left field, but
Yeah.
he played such a great center field last year, and I think them regarding Hicks now more as a corner outfielder. Maybe the way they go would be to put Judge back out in center field and Hicks in left. But yeah, and then where you go after that with the depth in the outfield remains to be seen, because they do have
the whole situation with Hicks and Judge left field, right field, you really have to weigh your options on, Judge hasn't played a whole lot of left field. Hicks is a natural center fielder. If you switch them, okay, yes, Judge is better in center field than he's going to be in left, but now you've got a guy in Hicks that really hasn't played a whole lot of left either. So, it's kind of a 6 half dozen type situation. You got to just kind of go with Booney will have to go with the gut feel to figure out which you would rather have where, and it may come down to just wear and tear. You would rather have Hicks in center field just simply because now Aaron Judge doesn't have to cover as much ground.
Yep, and Hicks is also a guy that comes with an injury history too. So
Sure.
I guess they got to be careful about how much and how long that they play these guys during the week just to maintain them. So that's something to watch. The rotations changed a bit, Mike, with Carlos Rodon out for probably about a month. You got to think conservatively here that
hopefully,
that now Rodon has told us that this is something he's this elbow forearm thing. Now he's already had Tommy John surgery. We should say the UCL came back intact. The MRI, everything was good there, and he feels that he could pitch through this, but there's no reason to do it now.
Right.
So erring on the side of caution, you would anticipate that the rotation that you start off with would be Cole, Severino. Nestor Cortez is going to pitch fifth, it looks like, coming out of the gates, because he was slowed a bit by the hamstring injury. But now Domingo Germán, who looked like he was going to take Frankie Montas' spot, is firmly in the rotation, and Clark Schmidt is the runaway leading candidate to now take that spot that would have been Rodon. So right now, at least the Yankees have, on March 10th, 5 starters going forward, but their depth is really being tested. And beyond, the depth of having Germán and Schmidt fill in for Montas and Rodon, it gets a little sketchy after that. I mean, you're talking about Davy Garcia again, who for the last year and a half has completely lost his command, and you wonder if he's even a prospect anymore, or somebody that the organization even considers long term as somebody who could help them either in the rotation of the bullpen, or he's even a trade piece. So their rotation depth is being tested right off the bat here.
Yeah, we talked about this at the beginning of camp when Frankie Montas came, when he was being taken out of the rotation due to his injury. We talked about how, they're fine the way they are, because you weren't counting on Frankie at the beginning of the season anyways, even if he was healthy, just because he wasn't going to be ready for April. But, we said that, the depth is being questioned, and they needed everyone to stay healthy. Now, they're saying all the right things. Rodon's saying the right things. The Yankees, they're saying the right things, that, this doesn't seem to be severe. They've put a time frame on it, but it's an elbow. You never know. You really never know. I mean, you talk to anyone that has had, any doctor that does Tommy John, ligament replacement surgery, they'll tell you, when you have the first one, what have you really done? You've started the clock on the second one. I'm not saying that's the situation with Rodon, but it's still an elbow, and that's always a question mark until he's back healthy and throwing again. I mean, that's really the thing. He can feel good now. But it's really about getting back on the mound, getting into a throwing program, and seeing how the elbow reacts. So we'll just all keep our fingers crossed that that's the case, that it is just going to be a few weeks, maybe the end of April, like you said. Hopefully that's all it is. But I'm always just so wary of elbows, just simply from the history that we've had in Major League Baseball. How many times have we seen a guy go down with just a slight elbow strain, and then in 3 weeks he's having Tommy John?
Yeah, I guess if you're looking for the silver lining on this, and the just going off of what Rodon is saying, is that this is similar to something he pitched through last May and last September with the Giants. He didn't have imaging last time, so it could have resulted in a shutdown of a couple of starts had he had an MRI back then. But he felt it was something he could pitch through, and he did, and he had he had an all-star season.
Well, I mean, if you remember back to September, there was big question marks going into the postseason whether he was going to be healthy. The start before they shut him down, he was throwing in the low 90s. The stuff just simply wasn't there. Took some time off, and it did definitely bounce back. Had the electric stuff back later in the postseason, but there's also just wear and tear. I mean, we'll just keep our fingers crossed. I don't want to be the perennial pessimist here, but we've just seen so many examples of bad elbows of something seemingly minor turn into something major, and we just got to keep our fingers crossed and hope that that's not the case for Carlos Rodon.
The bullpen's depth is also being tested here with Tommy Kahnle won't start on time with a biceps tendonitis. Lou Trevino dealing with the elbow ligament issue. For Kahnle, that's going to be a short term. They feel that this is something that developed earlier in camp. But he was coming off the Tommy John surgery from a few years ago. He had a bit of a setback last year with the Dodgers, but finished strong. Came into camp feeling great, but just it's probably the build up again.
Sure.
He hasn't had a normal spring training build up for 3 years now. So probably the ramping up of that work could have led to this. But there's also something he's dealt with in the past, and he feels like top end that this was a 3 to 4 week issue. So if that's the case, maybe mid-April he's back. And then Trevino, I think they're going real conservative, thinking that setting the target at about mid-May. But Trevino, just talking to him this morning, feels like he's actually progressing right now, and probably in his mind feels like that timetable could be sped up a bit. But he's never been on the IL previously with an arm issue.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. There's so many guys in Major League Baseball. Everybody needs a break. I like the time frame that they're doing for Trevino, just simply because they're not going to push him. It sounds like he wants to push it himself, and that's fine as long as they continue to be conservative. And the reason you want that is because a lot of times the second injury is always much worse. We talked about Harrison Bader and the oblique. It's really any soft tissue issue that if it happens again, it's always worse. So you want to take his time. And Trevino's got that bulldog personality that, okay, it feels good, let's go. But that's where the Yankees are going to have to kind of grab the reins, pull back on him, and make sure he doesn't do something crazy. So this is spring training. This is happening all over Major League Baseball. This is what happens in spring training. That's why I said at the beginning, Brian Cashman's nightmare is, what is the health report going to look like tomorrow? That's not just his. That's every general manager across the board in Major League Baseball.
Right. The beneficiaries of those guys not being on the opening day roster could be two guys who have been really interesting in this camp. One's Greg Weissert, who is on their 40-man roster, had a 12-game audition last year. A right-handed reliever with a really unique delivery, Mike. I mean, this guy sets up on the extreme third base side of the pitching plate, kind of angles his body where this has to be one of the most incredibly tough at bats for a right-handed hitter.
Yeah,
because he's staring in the opposite on deck circle, and is a sinker slider guy. This is a guy who in the last 2 years in the minor leagues had a sub-2 ERA. at AAA, and had his struggles a bit at the big league level initially last year, but a guy that they feel is really intriguing and could help their bullpen this year,
especially against right-handers.
Yeah.
I kind of equate this guy. He doesn't throw exactly the same. Actually, he's more extreme than Jeff Nelson. Nelly was devastating against right-handers because he was tall, he cross-fired, he kind of threw from behind the right-handed hitters and threw a whole bunch of sweeping sliders, and right-handers just simply couldn't square it up. In this day and age, that you got to remember, you can't really have a right-handed specialist. You'd use him at a certain time. There's going to be he's going to have to face some left-handers because of the 3-batter rule. Right. There's going to have to be some left-handers, and that's where Nelly had his difficulty also, was facing those left-handers. But with the sinker-slider combination, with his funkiness, fastball plays up, which means it seems to be a lot harder than it really is. But if he can put the ball in put the ball in the zone, he doesn't necessarily have to have great command of it. But because of his deception and because of his arm angle, there's just going to be outs just in putting the ball in the zone. So if he can do that, he could be a useful pitcher for Booney there early in the season until some of these other guys come back.
Yeah, a couple of the guys to watch. There's a non-roster pitcher in camp named Ian Hamilton. He's had limited major league experience. He has a pitch that he's developed, a split change type of pitch, and it's become kind of the talk of camp right now. That and the development of Clark Schmidt's cutter, I think, are two of the pitches that have been sort of talked up a bit in camp this year. So as a non-roster pitcher, he's got a shot now to make this club, getting a lot of attention. They've got really one left-hander in this bullpen in Wandy Peralta, and a guy named Matt Crook, who's on their 40-man, could now stand to benefit from these injuries and possibly make this club. And Jimmy Cordero is a guy they put on their 40-man roster this year, and a guy that they're kind of high on too. So those are a couple of names that you could watch. Could possibly come north with the Yankees when they break camp here in about 3 weeks. And then the real talk of camp, Mike, has been Anthony Volpe, the 21-year-old shortstop from New Jersey. When camp started, in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, if he hits 350 and Oswald Peraza hits 200, but he has a healthy spring, Peraza still has the edge to be the opening day shortstop. Now, halfway through camp, my thinking has been altered by the way Volpe has played. Just getting to watch him every day, his everyday demeanor. I mean, this guy, the way he goes about his work, his preparation, his defense has actually been impressive too. And, there are some scouts who wonder if he's a long-term shortstop. He's played second base in this camp. He's worked out some at third base, but he's made every play at shortstop that you'd want to see him make. Yeah, and he's hit under the spotlight in this camp. So if you had to say right now, this is the best looking shortstop in Yankees camp right now, and they're going to have a very long and hard discussion in the coming weeks about whether to take him north at age 21. He'll turn 22 in April.
Right. What I like from Volpe is the fact that it's not just the numbers he's put up. Like you said, he's made every play. He looks comfortable. He doesn't look like he's out of sorts. His body mannerisms, the way he's talking with the other players, the way he, because a shortstop, it doesn't matter if you're a rookie or not. You have to take command defensively. You are the premier position on the field. You're kind of in charge of everyone except for the catcher. So, and he's done that. He doesn't look out of sorts. He doesn't look out of place. He doesn't look like the game is too fast for him. Now, the question is always, is the second deck on the stadium going to make a difference? I don't think it will. The kid seems to have a pretty slow heartbeat. And, what do you do with him? You put him at the end of the bottom of the lineup. You just let him progress and just tell, hey, dude, you're our starting shortstop. You're going to play, 6 days a week. We'll give you an off day every once in a while. And we'll see where you are after 300 at-bats. As long as he holds himself defensively, as long as he can make the routine play, doesn't have to make the spectacular play, but as long as he can make the routine play and not hurt them defensively, I'm kind of digging it. I like it.
Yeah. And, regardless of Volpe's status, the Yankees do have an infield surplus right now. And, Brian Cashman talked about that yesterday and basically said, listen, essentially the shingle's out there. If the teams are coming for infield help, we've got guys we can talk to about, and
right,
without saying who they are. Obviously, you're thinking Isaiah kind of Falefa. You really don't know what his status on this club is if he's not the everyday shortstop, and he probably won't be the everyday shortstop. So, what is his status on this team? And and to some extent, I don't think that. Josh Donaldson has a very tough contract to move, with the money still remaining on there.
Yeah,
but Gleyber Torres is still an attractive, trade piece in the right trade. I'm not saying that the Yankees are actively shopping him. I don't think they are at this point, but still, it's a guy you can move if you can, if you get the right package back, whatever that is. If I tend to think right now that they're okay in left field the way it is, status quo right now. You get another pitching injury though in the starting rotation,
right.
then you're really in trouble. Then it's all hands on deck. Anything's available. But right now, I got to think that IKF looks like the odd man out right here if they're going to make a move before spring training ends.
Yeah, the problem is what is Isaiah's market? What is his value in Major League Baseball right now to another team, to a team that, but there's just not a whole lot there. Just simply because, he had a subpar offensive year last year. He's a good defensive shortstop. He usually makes the play the way he's supposed to. The guy that has the most value, and here's where Cashman's in a bind, is Gleyber. Gleyber he's younger, he's more athletic, he's a much better offensive player, had a good offensive season last year. But he's also the guy that you may need in your lineup anyway. So he's your most valuable player to you, but he's also, when we're talking about all these players, he's your most valuable player to you, but he's also going to be the most valuable player on the trade market. So, that's where hard decisions have to be made by Brian Cashman. Yeah,
and listen, I'm not discounting the value that IKF could bring to another club, and possibly, listen, the Dodgers could have a need out there seem to have a need for an infielder. Possibly there are other clubs. The Rockies could be another team that could use some infield help right now. And then you never know, as you said, what shakes out in the last 3 weeks of camp here. So
right.
I would think that now Cashman said there's nothing hot and heavy going on right now, and this is really not the time you see many deals made.
We're still too early
anyway. But 2 weeks down the road here, when you're really getting down to the last parts of formulating your 26-man active roster, that's when you'll see some action.
So with Kiner Falefa, you also have to remember, what is his value going to be to the Yankees? Even if he's not the starting shortstop, he could go on the bench and he could be the backup. Because as Volpe, as much as we like what we're seeing right now, is he a shoe-in? We talked about the second deck on the stadium. No, he's not. And what if, you talk to any old scout, they'll tell you have to take spring training in September with rain and salt. That you can't really hang your hat on those 2 times a year because guys can just get hot. And then, once, I can tell you a story. In spring training back in '97, I'm throwing bullpens, and I was I came from the Braves organization. We were facing hitters from the very beginning, and Joe Girardi caught me a couple times, and he was, he tells me the story later. He's catching, going, this guy's really got nothing. He's not, even in the game, it was okay. And then, but it wasn't until we got to the regular season. It wasn't that I wasn't trying in spring training. But once we got to the regular season, the first fastball I threw him, now Joe's like, okay. There's a little bit more behind that now. Now this is the guy that we brought in, that we meant to bring in.
Yeah.
And so that you have that also, that the pitchers, one of the things you have to pay attention to is who are the pitchers he's hitting. Is he getting his base hits at the end of the game against minor leaguers? What do the at-bats look like against starters? And it's, even thus far in spring training, the pitchers aren't quite there yet. They're not at their sharpest. So those are all aspects that the Yankees and Brian Cashman are going to have to take into account. And that's where kind of Falefa could kind of be, okay, if it doesn't work out, we keep him on the field because at least we know exactly what we're going to get when we put him at shortstop.
Right. And actually playing shortstop today for the Yankees in Lakeland is Oswaldo Cabrera. And I think his versatility and the way that he's been able to, he is a shortstop. They'll already have a guy who can back up shortstop if they somehow move IKF. But Cabrera's even played some center field and looked pretty natural out there too.
He's an athlete.
Yeah, he's an athlete. He can hit, switch hitter, and he's played seven positions right now. Just one more last thing before we go. Another guy who's gotten some attention in his first big league camp and a big prospect, Jason Dominguez, the switch hitting center fielder, hit his third home run of camp yesterday, and he launched that one over the bleachers here in right field. So there's a lot of excitement around this guy. He's sort of, and Cashman mentioned this too, his game has gotten better with every level he's ascended, and he did play at 3 levels last year. He'll probably start the season at Double-A, and he's only 20, turned 20 last month. But a guy that is coming with a bullet, and a guy that this time next year will be competing for a starting outfield spot in this club.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, just very talented young man. And you never know. I mean, we may see him a little later in the season. He's not going to make the opening day roster. He shouldn't make the opening day roster. He still has, if nothing else, he hasn't used any he's still got options. So, what you want to make sure is, he's going to be kind of your top outfield prospect. When you bring him to the big league, you don't want to bring him to sit him on the bench. You want to bring him to play. And that's why you start him in the minor leagues, is because he's probably not going to start. He's probably not going to start for you right at this point. So you want to make sure he's continuing his development. You got to make sure he's continuing his at-bats. But once he gets called up, you don't want to ever have to send him back down. And him just being, newly 20 years old, you got plenty of time. There is no rush. There's other guys you can put out there. They may not be as talented as Dominguez is, but you got to make sure that when you call him up, you do not have to send him back down. Yep.
It'll be interesting to watch his development this year. You got to think that, he'll start in Double-A, finish in Triple-A, and could be a game where
may see him later in the summer. I mean, you hope not, because it's usually going to take an injury to get him here. But
exactly. And I think and a lot of these guys, Volpe included, they lost part of their development during that pandemic year too. So that's something to consider also. But we've got plenty of time to talk about those guys down the road and whatever else is going on with the Yankees. So we'll wrap it up from Tampa here, Mike. We'll see you down the road.
Hey, regular season's right around the corner. We got the WBC hot and heavy right now. So a lot of baseball out there to watch if you pay attention.
Absolutely. And we hope you join us once more. Thank you.